We're back, tribe. We're going to talk about the foam roller today, how to use it, when to use it, and why to use it. First thing we want to talk about is, which one? Why, when, where, how? Let's go why. Why do we want to use it? Why, thank you, yeah. Why we want to use it. So when we're using a foam roller, we should use it to help kind of create a little bit more of the mind-muscle connection in the body. By us rolling on those muscles, it creates a stimulation, helps promote the blood flow. So I'm a big fan of using the foam roller in between sets or before you start a set, before you start a movement. So if we're going to do squats, I would jump on the foam roller before I do my squats, roll out the quads a little bit, do a set. In between my sets, jump back on there, find that tension, all in our warm-up sets before we get into our working sets. If you don't know the difference, that's a fine, it doesn't really matter. But in general, we want to kind of do that during our warm-up of rolling that around, creating the stimulation of the muscles to recruit more muscle while we're doing the movement. We can also do it post-workout as well too. So if we did something and we feel kind of nagging pain or injury or just something that doesn't feel right, we can kind of roll this thing out and maybe relieve some of that tension, break up some of the adhesions in the fascia, which is a really thin layer in between your skin and your muscle that's made to slide. Think of it like your skin is supposed to slide like your elbow, where you could pinch it, move it around, it doesn't hurt. This is the way our skin should be. When we have those adhesions from doing excessive amount of work, those muscles kind of tighten up. And it's almost if we make a fist and try to move the skin around in our palm, it doesn't move as well. That's like what it would be like having an adhesion. We want to kind of release it so we can get that movement, and we should be able to move that without having any pain. A good identifier if you're on something that is overworked or tight or just not feeling right is it will trigger a painful response, a little bit of a painful response. If we've used a foam roller before, we found those spots in our body. And one thing we always have to keep in mind is that a relaxed muscle will never trigger a painful response. Okay, a relaxed muscle will never trigger a painful response. This is why you could roll out on your, roll out on, let's say, like your bicep or your tricep, and it might not actually feel anything, but if we jump on our quads, we're going to feel a lot of tension because in general, these quads, the psoas, hip flexors are all tight and short, so they need to be relaxed. And this is one of the best things we can do pre-workout or post-workout to kind of get that blood flow and break up that fascia and get your skin moving. So that's pretty much why we want to do it. How we do it, we're going to just show you a couple of them. We're going to show you the calf muscles. We're going to show you the quads. We're going to show you T-spine, and then we're going to finish it off with a little bit of lats. The lats are a good one too on this foam roller. A lot of people don't do that, but I find it's one of the best ways, especially if we're inhibited overhead, that we can't get that full extension with the bicep close to the ear and a straight elbow. A lot of times we're coming up and then the elbow bends because we have kind of just limited range of motion due to the adhesions that are happening in the fascia and stuff like that. So let's get on. First one we're going to do is just calves. Calves really good. So if you're going out for a run, this is a good one to do. You could always just start with both those legs straight on there. I kind of pick my hips up with my hands and I just kind of slide my body back and forth up and down the calves. And as we do that, what we can do is keep the feet straight up, or we can rotate the feet out and roll out. And we also want to rotate the feet in when we roll out. So remember that our muscles are 360 degrees all the way around our body. A lot of us get on a foam roller and we stay in that one plane of just hitting the gastroc. In this case, we're not hitting any of the other muscles around the calves. But we can work this initially by checking to see if we have any tenderness where we feel tight. I'm sure Nadine feels a little bit of tension somewhere on these calves with all of her running that she's been doing recently. But what we could also do is once we initially find where that tension is, we can spend a little more time targeting where that is. There's no point to be rolling out on something that is relaxed, doesn't cause any painful response or discomfort. But once we find it, and let's take your right leg. Do we have any tension on the right leg? Inside, outside?
Outside.
Outside. All right, so she has it on the outside. What she can do is bring that leg in, and then she can just kind of put that foot down on the side. She can pick the weight up and just slide forward and back on that outside area. Nice, slow, and controlled. Make sure that you're breathing during this. If we're holding our breath, creating tension, our pain is spiking above a 4 on a 1 to 10 pain scale, we need to lighten it up, or we just kind of relax and let that muscle just sit there to try to sink in the foam roller. If we feel like we need a little bit more tension, Nadine could take her other leg, cross it over the top, then lift herself up, and this way we're applying a little bit more pressure with that other leg to kind of help kind of push that down as well. If this is still not enough pressure, we can go without the foam roller, which we won't do, but we can take some lacrosse balls. They'll dig a little bit deeper into the muscles. The foam roller is good for generally overall movement. Great thing to start. All right, moving on. Next, we're going to go and attack the quad. So a lot of us use the foam roller to roll out the hamstrings, but our hamstrings are usually tight, and they're tight because we have an anterior pelvic tilt. So where the quad is shortened, like we always talk about, the psoas is usually tight, the hamstrings are now long, and because they're long and lengthened, they're the ones that are poking at you saying, hey, I'm under tension. So we jump on that foam roller, we roll out the hamstrings, but we're not really doing too much. What we need to do is roll out the quads so we can kind of create more activation of the muscles so they can lengthen, so our pelvis goes from an anterior pelvic tilt back into a neutral position, help relieve some of the tension of the hamstrings. So Nadine's doing this already. She's up on that foam roller. You'll notice as her body raises up as she pulls herself. We're keeping both those legs. I keep the legs relatively straight. We're kind of arching that body, sliding up. Once again, she can kind of shift her body from one side to the other, trying to just slightly change the angle of the muscles that we're attacking, as well as looking for that pain, the wincing of the face, holding your breath, anything that's going to happen with both the legs down. If we get to that spot that does happen, sit there, try to relax that muscle, think about that muscle melting over the foam roller. What you could also do is take your feet and we can flex and extend them, stay below a 90-degree bend when we're bending at the knees. So as she's foam rolling in and out, we can flex and extend those legs too. So we're activating the muscles, we're putting them for a lengthening and shortening process as we're doing this. Once again, breaking up any adhesions because we're creating a sensory pressure onto the muscle and the skin. So it's like kind of pulling it apart like Play-Doh or sticky putty. I don't really know. Either way. Another one that we could do is go onto the inside of the quad. So we're going to do more of an adductor foam roll movement here. So we're going to angle that about 45 degrees. Her body's going to go straight. Her leg's going to be out to the side. We can start up on that hip, kind of work the way down to the knee. In general, we want the blood flow going towards the heart always. So I would say put more of the pressure on the foam roller when it's at your knee and you're sliding up to your hip. You can lighten it up into the direction she's going now. This is where we want to drive that quad a little bit harder into the foam roller as she's sliding it back up, pushing that blood back towards the heart. In general, that's key, especially in massage or in foam rolling. We want to stick with that. But we can do the same thing with the leg, flex and extend that leg just a little bit, even if it's a couple inches as we're doing it. We're kind of find all the adhesions, any of that tension, and just work it on both sides. So that's how we can foam roll out our quads. Next, we're going to foam roll out our T-spine. When we're working on our spine, a lot of us take this to the full extent. We go from the neck all the way through the lumbar. So we go cervical spine, thoracic spine, and lumbar spine as we're doing this. I highly suggest you don't roll out your lumbar spine with the way that most people roll out, and that's just kind of picking the hips up, keeping the shoulders off the ground, pushing yourself all the way over so you're creating tons of tension, kind of like what she's doing without putting the shoulders on the ground. You're going to end up just causing a little bit more of irritation to that lower spine, especially if you already have back issues. I highly suggest not doing this. What we can do is work on the upper spine. So she's going to put her glutes on the ground, and we're going to kind of sit right on the midline. So if we split our torso in half, right in the bottom of our rib cage is a good place to start. I like to start in kind of a rounded position with the chin tucked and the hands close. We can pick the hips up a little bit and just go from that mid to upper spine as we roll through there. And then as we do that, we can start opening and pulling the shoulders back, reaching the head back a little bit, making a little bit of a crunch on that foam roller as well too, just rolling it back and forth. And also we can go side to side. So I would roll to one side, then move up and down. Roll to the other side, then move up and down. Therefore, we kind of stay directly off that spine. We can shrimp our body side to side. Any way we can find movement, trying to constantly explore where we find tension. We don't really care about where there's no tension because that muscle is relaxed. So this is an easy way that we can get onto that foam roller. In general, spend a couple minutes. A couple minutes for those bigger muscles, maybe a minute for the smaller muscles. So bigger muscles being like quads and hamstrings and our back, smaller muscles being forearms, biceps, calves, triceps, things like that. Well, that's what we can do for foam rolling on the back. Finally, one that a lot of us don't do, but is very helpful, is going to be rolling out our lats. So when we roll out the lats, what we're talking about is the meat or the skin, the flesh that's all back here that we could physically grab, all right? This lat, if we're not sure, we could raise the arm up. We can feel that lat kicking in. We feel that muscle activate. That's what we're rolling on. Now we're going to be rolling that up into that back part of that shoulder. We do not want to be rolling up into the armpit. And we are going to roll a little bit down onto the serratus anterior where your ribs, all the muscles around your ribs. Just be very light around the ribs. One, it's going to be probably painful pushing your ribs on there. Two, the serratus anterior muscles are very small relative to the lats. The lats take up pretty much our entire back like a kite. So we can put a lot more weight and our own body weight into that. With the serratus anterior, a lot smaller muscles, go a lot lighter. So you're going to kind of have to adjust that pressure that you're putting on there. But as you can see, she kind of has this arm out. Her body's about 45, angled about 45 on there. She could use this other leg that's up with the knee bent as her push and pull leg for her to kind of push her body up and pull her body back down. And then in general, just pull your body down. You might add a little bit of rotation when you come down so we get a little bit flatter, so we tack a little bit more of the teres minor and the infraspinatus that's on the back side of the shoulder. And just kind of working that nice and slow. Move that arm up and down, create movement. Once again, looking for tension, looking for that face, creating a wincy face, holding breath. Those are all signs that that muscle needs to be worked, needs to be relaxed. But with anything, and you can relax, Nadine, with anything, this foam roller and the time that we spend on it is good for about 5 to 10 minutes, okay? And we want to create that sensation of the body, break up any adhesions of the fascia, and then we want to put that muscle through a range of motion. That's why we're big fans of putting this in between sets. That's just the stimulation of the muscle that we're creating for you to use it. If we stimulate it and then we don't put it through a range of motion, a correct range of motion, we're not going to improve that position, okay? It's like heating the microwave up without having any food in it. Great, we know the microwave can get warm, but it's not doing us any good. It's the same thing with the foam roller. If we're not taking the time to, the fuck was I just talking about?
The microwave.
Yeah, what was before that?
The muscles. Heating up the muscles.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Yeah. If we're not taking the time to help our body relearn a new movement after we foam roller, it's kind of pointless. So that's why a lot of times I'm like, don't touch a foam roller, because people just use a foam roller for everything and you're just wasting time during your workout. You're wasting time during your warm up. Use the foam roller as is intended. Before workout, during sets of if you're lifting, or post workout to help improve your range of motion on anything that we feel like we're inhibited on. But after you do that movement, put your muscle through range of motion so it knows, especially if we can put that muscle through range of motion and load. And you're like, well, I just did a workout. Why do I want to do this at the end? Well, after you get done with the workout, foam roll. And then if we're doing lats, just take a dumbbell and do some light presses. It doesn't have to be a lot of weight. It doesn't have to be a new workout. Put yourself through about 30 reps in general. 30 reps is pretty good at a light weight, so we can kind of change that position, see the improvement of the position, and help let it stick. So that's all our tips on the foam roller. Let us know your thoughts, obviously, in the comments. Like, subscribe, click all the buttons if you think we deserve it. And we'll see you guys next week.